researching stand-up comedians who stutter, I found, first of all, that there aren't that many of them. In all, I contacted 12. 8 responded, 5 agreed to participate, and 4 actually did. They were asked a series of questions about what they do. 2 answered in writing, and 2 preferred to be interviewed. Here's what they said. Three of the 4 subjects said they started doing stand-up comedy because it was something that they always wanted to do.
Stand-up comedy was something that I've loved since I was a little kid. And as a kid, I wanted to be a stand-up comedian, and I would call open mics to see if they would allow underage and all of that stuff. And then I just kind of, I always thought that you'd have to be fluent in order to be a stand-up comedian. And so I just kind of let the dream die. And then I entered it again when I was 36, or I entertained the idea again when I was 36. And it was after the National Stuttering Association conference. When I came back from that, what I realized was that I was kind of the person that I had wanted to be, and that I wanted to become when I was young, with a few exceptions. One was the relationship I was in. And so after 6 months, I broke up with him. And then soon after, I decided, okay, what's that other thing? And that other thing was doing stand-up.
Right. My motivation, it was... Yeah, well, basically, when you're in your early to mid 20s, and you're trying to do a few job interviews and just to kind of start your life and kind of see friends as well, I realized that I couldn't speak as confidently as I would have liked to. So yeah, I think the main motivation was job interviews, really, just be able to handle an interview to get a job, to obviously earn some, earn a bit of money, I guess, end of the day. So yeah, in a nutshell. But I mean, also watching far too much TV, so I've always been, influenced by, well, yes, your American comedians, especially like Robin Williams, watching too much Mork and Mindy growing up. Yeah, who knows? Yes, so yeah, those 2 things.
And, I'd always told everybody, in presentations, because I'm also an educator, and I've done presentations, and I've told people, like, you could be whatever you want to be, but I wasn't internalizing that for myself. So I thought that I should start doing. And years after, I think I was 17 at the time, I found an organization called the National Stuttering Project, which is now the National Stuttering Association, where the message wasn't that you had to be fixed. Because before that, I thought that I had to be fluent. And I had dreams of being a stand-up comic, but I never thought that I could stutter and do that. And throughout finding them and seeing that it was more about self-acceptance and about self-expression instead of being fluent, I was able to accept who I was and the way that I spoke.
Two of the 4 said the stress had more to do with stand-up than with stuttering.
So the actual stress was due to not having a great script at the start. I kind of was so desperate in a way to get onto the stage that the script I was using wasn't very good. So that was quite stressful, using a script that in a way, I should wait till a year to improve.
Another felt stressed to address his stuttering right away, and the last respondent doesn't stress over speech, comedy, or reportedly much else. There were two common answers to this question. 3 of the 4 said they continue with stand-up just because they enjoy it. 3 also referenced the positive feedback they get from audiences.
You know, it changes a lot because, like, I did a show a couple weeks ago, and it was just at this divey bar, and it was just like a scummy show on a Saturday night with like 10 people there, most of them drunk. And there was this guy in the front row who was just really obnoxious, older guy, and I had a rapport with him. And like, even though it was this crappy show, it was still so much fun to like be in there and do.
There were some other interesting answers as well.
Well, I could tell it was helping me. So I could tell that if I could stand on stage and make people laugh, then an interview with 3 people wasn't going to be as nerve-wracking.
Unexpectedly, to me at least, 2 of the comedians spoke about people who thought they were faking their stutters.
There is, there's people who think that I'm faking it. And that's where, as the set goes on, some of that stuff is more ironed out, and that they get used to me. And that's partly why one of the first things I do is I say that that when I say my name, it goes something like Nina, and then I add, isn't that pretty sexy?
So I would love for you guys to check out my YouTube page. My YouTube page has some great content, but even better comments. You have to go to it for the comments, because you'll see stuff on there like she's obviously just trying to get attention.
Other barriers were more significant.
You've got to be confident. I'm stuttering on the word confidence. I think if you're not confident on stage, then you've got problems. So from that point of view, stuttering is a barrier, because the audience might look at the comedian and think, well, hang about, he's not being confident, he's being nervous, he's not in control of his own abilities to be punny.
I've got to explain. I've got a slight stutter. I've got to admit that. Quickly.
All 4 respondents used the word unique when answering this question, referring to either a selling point or their comedic perspective.
Stand-up comedy in the UK is a very competitive industry, really. You're competing against literally hundreds of people all wanting to be comedians. So to have a stutter is like a unique, well, selling point in a way. So
beneficial because of the perspective that I have, and also I think it is similar to other minority experiences, and I think people can see that in my stand-up. There are times when, well, and I only have one thing where the stutter is a natural stutter, and that is part of the punchline, but it is part in the context of the joke, I don't feel that I'm making fun of the speech itself.
This is how my speech therapist told me to talk when I was 11. I didn't realize 30 years after I would use it to drag out a comedy show.
There were also benefits that would not have occurred to me.
Many people say that timing is a big part of comedy, which I think, interestingly, I think having a stammer or stutter, it kind of relates to the timing. So the audience almost need to have time to laugh. So many comedians, they walk on stage and they almost talk too quickly. You almost need the confidence to think, well, okay, here's a 3-second interval where the audience can laugh. Now, having a stutter actually gives you that 3-second interval without thinking about it, because here is your interval and they will laugh. And also builds up a bit of comic tension, and adds to the originality of the whole performance. So having a stammer from the age of, well, 4 or 5, you learn other aspects of communication which do not involve just speaking. So you learn, as I'm doing now, to use your hands a bit, to use a bit of pathos, a bit of empathy, a bit of, I don't know, other things. Well, it sounds arrogant to say charm. I'm not that charming, really, but you've got to make the audience like you, and that, because no one's going to laugh with you, or, well, hopefully not at you, but they won't laugh with you if they don't like you. So having a stutter kind of is a way of instantly, within like a minute, you kind of you learn how to make someone kind of like you a bit, because you grew up with it. There's no advantage to make people hate you if you have a stutter, because life's hard enough. So you might as well try and make people like you, and you learn that from school, really. You want people to be your friends rather than enemies. So whereas like a natural not a natural comic, a normal comic hasn't perhaps honed those kind of likability skills, if that makes sense. So they're kind of they I think to the average person that they don't have to have all these other parts of their personality. It hasn't been needed as much. Whereas to a stammerer, they need to have pathos and charm, and because anyway, I'm going on a bit.
So she said, let me get straight. She didn't have a stutter.
As noted, all of the subjects had a great desire to perform comedy. For 2 of them, however, shame was a factor.
The more stand-up I did, the less shameful I became.
Also, 2 came to the realization that people don't really care all that much about stuttering.
The thing is, whether or not you stutter, you will burn out on it in 6 months.
Thank you. It takes a lot of courage to be up here. I've had to overcome many obstacles. If you stutter, I'm an inspiration. If you don't, I'm just an angry bitch.
All 4 comics agreed that stuttering has to be addressed on stage.
So when you go to an open mic, you have 3 minutes to maybe 10. And if you want to get to a new joke that isn't about stuttering, you kind of have to not do that. And so I think with more experience, where I'm kind of like, well, screw the audience, I'm just going to stutter anyway. I've kind of gotten to a place where I can not have to talk about my speech. But the thing is, I have 10 or 15 solid minutes on stuttering, and stuff happens to me, and those are some of my best jokes where it just like snaps in. So it's a mix there.
Almost the moment I stutter on stage, I will mention it. Is it a regular topic? Yes. Partly because, if I'm being honest, I'm not that great at writing other original material. But it's a topic that people seem to like hearing about, and it's a topic that can lead on to other things as well. I don't just spend like 20 minutes or so talking about having a stammer, but it's just something which well, certainly has been a regular topic, yes.
Getting work for a comedian in Suffolk is on the OAP hospital circuit. The audience normally consists of two old ladies wetting themselves. Sorry, no, I've got to explain. I've got a slight stutter. Not a great start, but you've only got 3 minutes on live TV.
All answered yes. The trend was for stuttering humor to become less about the speaker and more about the dumb things that listeners do.
But it's still mainly about my life and my stutter and how it's affected me. Mainly over time, I've probably introduced more about how we view people who have a stutter and how that perhaps relates to society as a whole in terms of how we view each other on kind of superficial levels, that type of humour relating to that.
Person to ask, because I don't make stuttering the butt of my joke. I make other people the butt of my joke. And the one thing that we have seen in the media is stutterers being made fun of, but the power really hasn't been with us. Either making fun of ourselves or making fun of others. It's images like a fish called Wanda or a Porky Pig and that kind of, or it's a lawyer in My Cousin Vinny. Really good example of the stuttering and only the stuttering being the focus and not other aspects of it. And so it's very kind of surfacey and isn't from our point.
Did you forget your own name? What? It's okay, I can make fun of you, my uncle stutters. Have you ever considered eating a live canary? You are such an inspiration. If I talked like you, I wouldn't talk to anybody.
Two of the four said the effect of stuttering on audiences is very small, but in general, subject responses were quite varied for this question, ranging from audience reactions of sympathy to disdain.
It's different according to different audiences. I live in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area, and you'd think, again, the Berkeley audiences, they'd be so open and wonderful and great. A lot of times they're afraid to laugh at me because, like, they're taught not to laugh at people with disabilities, and I'm like, the fact that you're not laughing shows me how much what your issues are around.
But I got one the other day that was so sweet. It was so nice. It was about my stand-up comedy. This guy put, "This is the bravest thing I've ever seen." The bravest thing this guy's ever seen is me doing stand-up comedy. And I just want to say, In your face, 9/11 first responders.
Yeah, well, I don't know if anyone's here who's stuttered. Really?
I used to.
Oh,
No, seriously, I
seriously? Well, I would speak longer. There's barely enough time for one person to stutter. So.
Interestingly, given what they do and the high level of desensitization it requires, responses to this question were not that different from what one would hear with any group of adults who stutter.
People who stutter.
Oh my God. Once I was on the way to a comedy competition, which I eventually won. Like I won like 5 rounds of this, and I came out on the very, very top of like 120 comics. But the first night, I was in the car with 4 of my friends. We were all in the same competition, and I wanted a Diet Coke at the drive-thru, and I was the one driving. Okay. And so right before I rolled up to the speaker, I told all my friends, I said, okay, does anybody want anything? So say now, what do you want to order? And everyone's like, no. And then I drove up and I ordered my Diet Coke, and then my friend started barking out orders, and I froze, and I said, I can't do it. And then I made them say the order instead of me.
Well, as you can tell from this video, I still have a stutter, and cameras, for example, are still quite difficult. Group situations which are noisy, say in a pub or a restaurant. I tend not to get invited out that much these days, but partly because but in the past I think it's referred to as communicative stress. So if you're in a pub and it's very noisy, I find that quite difficult. Telephones can still be a problem. I don't know, really. Meeting new people. I mean, I still, yes. Many situations.
I only really start actually on my S and my T's now. And my speech therapist said, well, you can't say fairer than that then. Well, which is true, I can't.
Again, the responses were much like would be expected with any group of people who stutter. They included secondary behaviors and skills learned in therapy.
I try really hard not to do any secondaries, which I still do a ton of secondaries. And whenever I say that and I do an interview and I say, oh yes, I try not to do any of those. And then I listen to it and I'm like, oh, I just ummed there and I odd there. And so they come very natural. So, you know, I just, for me, I think the coping mechanism is to let people know that I stutter and to commit to the material that I have. I have something I've planned to say, and I may stutter on it, and I may not. And I think, you know, I've probably desensitized myself enough, and this is probably a key thing for speech therapists to know, that I've desensitized myself enough that, like, I've been there, done that, and I got through it.
I just try and speak slowly and calmly, and it's interesting, through stand-up you practice a lot of words. It's like being an actor, you have script, and you have to by practicing certain letters that I got stuck on, like B's and P's, and so even just running through the alphabet. I'm probably someone who and just kind of concentrating on what I'm trying to say is important. But yeah,
This one was a little more predictable, as all reported a high level of acceptance. Moreover, their thoughts on acceptance were interesting.
Well, and that is the thing that, like, this is just more of a side thing, and I have a lot to say about this, but I think that stutterers get really hard on themselves, especially the ones who have gone the self-acceptance route. Like, you have to be self-accepting all the time. And it's like, that's a very militant and not very flexible view. And, you know, and the whole thing is stuttering a gift? And it has to be a gift. It doesn't have to be a gift, and it doesn't have to be a curse. It could, like I have brown hair. Is that a curse? Or is that a gift? It's not anything. It's the color of my hair. And so I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to reframe it in a positive way when it's just blah. It's just there. And that's also where your speech and language pathologist should read my blog, because I did a blog on reframing the stuttering iceberg, where instead of the things underneath the iceberg that, you know, shame and all of that stuff, I replaced those with things like community, pride, and those kinds of things that I think we can also have.
I would say I am now much more accepting of my stutter. Yes, I totally understand the theories about the need to be open, and I am a much more open person with people than I used to be. And
yeah, no, it's well, in some diversity circles they use the term oppression Olympics, and and you know, I think there is an aspect there too of like, I've accepted it more than you.
So what have we learned? Well, for one thing, stuttering is very individualized, and that people who stutter can accomplish amazing things. And dreams can overcome barriers set forth by stuttering. What I find interesting is that these comedians aren't without speaking fears. Theirs just don't include stand-up comedy, what many people would rate as the most fearful speech situation of all. These people are not necessarily more courageous than others dealing with this disorder. They just found ways to overcome their fears and turned what they once viewed as their most shameful trait into something beneficial. They found humor in distressing circumstances, mainly by turning the tables on their listeners and revealing the listener's insensitivity. The stuttering comedians put themselves in positions where acceptance of stuttering, fears and all, were not only helpful, it was mandatory. And that might be the best gift comedy gave them.